two teenagers have been arrested in England as part of the investigation into the situation in the US that unfolded on Saturday, where a man took a Jewish rabbi and three other people hostage at a synagogue in Texas. Police spent 10 hours in a standoff with 44-year-old Malik Faisal Akram, who's also British. He then died in what's been called a shooting incident. With me now is Gideon Falter from the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism. He's the CEO. Gideon, do you think it raises questions about anti-Semitism in the UK, given that this man went to the US to carry out an attack on a synagogue?
I mean, look, the whole affair has been deeply disturbing, and definitely, we have to look at what was motivating this man. He went into a synagogue, he took people hostage, he made demands about a person who's imprisoned in the US who's also deeply anti-Semitic. We need to understand what kind of clues might have been missed, what kind of incitement or indoctrination may have affected him before he made these decisions. And we need to see really what our security services and what our police are A, may have missed, and B, what they may be going to do now to try to keep Jews in the UK safe.
I mean, the man himself, Malik Faisal Akram, the deceased, was 44, but the pair arrested in England are, as we understand, teenagers. What does that say to you about anti-Semitism amongst a younger generation? I mean, to me, it seems quite surprising.
It's very upsetting. Look, we don't yet know what these teenagers have been arrested for exactly. We don't know what the details are. But what we are seeing more and more is, particularly during the lockdowns, we saw a lot of young people going online, watching very persuasive, very, very insidious indoctrination materials on the internet, watching things on YouTube, on TikTok, all sorts of places where they get sucked into conspiracy theories. Many of those conspiracy theories are conspiracy theories targeting Jews. And we don't know exactly what's happened in this case, but it would not surprise me at all if what we discover is that people have been getting self-radicalized over the internet.
It's interesting you talk about, radicalization via the internet and provoking perhaps this increase in anti-Semitism. Do you think that the sort of huge internet giants, we talk about this a lot when it comes to, children's sexual behavior, harmful sexual behavior in schools, and, so many destructive elements coursing through our society seem to emanate from a lack of responsibility about what's published on the internet. Is it something that you feel is contributing largely to the increase in anti-Semitism?
Oh, there's no question. I mean, we get contacted by so many parents, so many children who are really concerned about what they're seeing on the internet, what their peers are seeing on the internet, and the way that they are being really sucked into a world of conspiracy theories and a world of hatred, which, we just never grew up with that before. It was something where, people spreading hatred weren't able to get into a child's bedroom or living room or school in the way that they can through these social media platforms, which go straight to a child's device and no one knows what they're watching and what they're seeing. And so we're seeing parents who were completely unaware that their children were involved, for example, in neo-Nazi or Islamist organizations. We are seeing families and schools where this is happening without anybody realizing, without anybody being any the wiser. It's really worrying. And where are the social networks in all of this? What are they doing to stop this kind of material reaching our children? And I think that's why there is now this big push in Britain and around the world to regulate social media, because they just don't seem to be doing it themselves.
Have you ever looked? Have you been shocked at what you've seen?
Yeah, I honestly, some of the most disturbing stuff that I've seen have been videos and materials that are quite clearly, targeting children. I give you an example. For example, a group called National Action, which is now banned as a terrorist organisation in the UK, following our efforts, and those are many others. But they used to have a Miss Hitler beauty pageant every year, and what they would do is they would get young girls to dress in what they would, in basically sort of Nazi uniforms and sort of scantily clad in swastika flags and this sort of thing, and sort of compete in a beauty pageant. And now, most parents, I think, probably have no idea that their kids are getting involved in something like this. They'd probably be absolutely disgusted and horrified if they found that that's what it was. And the same thing goes with some of these Islamist groups and gangs, where they really, they kind of create this feeling of enlightenment almost, that they are the only ones who know the truth about the world. They're the only ones who are aware of the conspiracy. Everybody else is blind. You hear these words like sheeple, where people are sort of following around like a flock of sheep. And, parents just don't know what their kids are seeing on social media. And that is really some of the shocking stuff. When you look on TikTok, for example, sometimes you see things trending, which are basically just, we've even seen acts of Holocaust denial trending, where children are basically engaging in what we would term Holocaust denial. And they're kind of doing it as part of the latest trend, as part of something which briefly crops up on TikTok or one of these other social networks and disappears again. It's really harrowing to see it happen.
Gideon, you mentioned regulating social media networks. What else can be done to combat anti-Semitism? And do you think enough is being done in the UK? Do you think we're taking it seriously enough?
I actually don't think that we are. I think that as a country, we're actually a pretty tolerant, decent lot. But it's something, tolerance is something that you've got to fight for. Decency is something that you've got to fight for. And we're seeing a massive upsurge. In the last few years, we've seen every single year be a record-breaking new year for anti-Semitic crime. Jews per capita are about 4 times more likely than any other religious group to be the victim of a hate crime. And we're not seeing the prosecutions come through. The Crown Prosecution Service has a really dismal record, one of the worst records, I think, in the world on prosecuting anti-Semitism. We are seeing continued incitement on social media. We are seeing all sorts of issues cropping up in the way that anti-Semitism is discussed, in the way that it's taught, with people involving all sorts of narratives around anti-Semitism that just don't belong there. People, sort of trying to bring in Israel and other things like that, where most of these cases are simple cases of Jew hatred. And sometimes people mention Israel, sometimes people try and confuse the issue. But generally speaking, when you've got somebody, for example, taking hostages in a synagogue, or asking teenage girls to dress up as Miss Hitler, this is just pure hatred, and we ignore it at our peril. And as well as regulating social networks, we really need these prosecutions to start coming through, because until the people responsible for spreading this hatred start to be held accountable, they're just going to get bolder and bolder, and hatred's going to keep on spreading.
Gideon Falter, CEO of Campaign Against Anti-Semitism, thank you very much.